What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Holy patch notes. We had a we had a disgusting amount of 6.0 alpha Warlords of Draenor information drop. And as always, like we told you, Akky and I are going to be covering it from a PvE perspective. So, of course, Akky's with me. What's up?
What's up, my man?
Not too much to do. We have so much to cover. So, guys, obviously, Blizzard has put this out on their webpage, so please make sure you go check it out. If you don't know how to get through it there, it is currently on the front page of MMO Champion as well. So if you want to see any of these notes that we're talking about, please feel free. Now, Akky and I are obviously going to cover the Mage and the Warlock changes here, so this video is going to be mainly about the Mage, and what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be covering the pruning. The pruning spells, if you want to read through what that means, pretty much the spells that they're taking out, combining, whatever. If you want to read through those, feel free. There's just too many notes for us to cover and make this video anywhere near watchable. So we need to actually go through this and read. So let's get started right into the Mage. So many changes. Just stupid amounts of changes. So we're going to cover the Mage changes, and then we're also going to go through, and then we're going to cover the level 100 talents as they currently sit. Obviously, guys, none of this has gone live. They haven't even given numbers to the level 100 talents yet, to some of them. So this is just pure speculation. Do we think it's good, bad, indifferent? These are just kind of our thoughts and general principles based on a PvE perspective going forward. So, Akky, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you kind of just read through it, and then I will go into it. So just start kind of at the top. We don't really need to deal with presence of mind a whole lot, because that's mainly a PvP change.
I want to just start from like the main changes.
Right, so let's start pretty much at the bomb. The bombs are sufficient to start with. Everything above that, guys, is pretty much based on PvP. The only real thing that changed above that is Alter Time has pretty much been removed as a buff enhancer, which is what we were using it for. It is now pretty much solely for CC and utility and movement based in pretty much arenas and PvP. It will probably not have much of a bearing on PvE going forward, and Temporal Shield has been removed. So going down into the bombs, Akky, go ahead and start reading that stuff, and then we'll discuss just through the bomb point of it.
Okay, so basically the bomb's got a little change where each bomb is only available to that specific type of mage, so Frost Mage, Arcane Mage, Fire Mage. So the first big change, Nether Tempest can now only be put on one target instead of from any number of targets, unlimited basically. But the secondary damage, so the little bolts that fly out, now hits all targets in range and deals 100% of the primary damage instead of 50%. So how do you feel about that?
It's actually really good. I do like the bombs in general being changed to class specific, because what this kind of allows is, if you remember currently in SOO, the problem with mages right now is we're constantly changing our bomb because Nether Tempest can be applied to unlimited targets and it's overpowered. You know, when you have a dot, as a mage, when you have your dot doing more damage than pretty much any other spell, you're turning into a simplified Warlock, which is not what Blizzard intended, and I think these changes kind of address that issue. Nether Tempest in general, I love this change. A, because it makes single target extremely simple, and it also makes AoE extremely simple, because obviously you're going to pick, if there's an AoE pack, you're going to be dealing, or you know what I mean, like, you're going to be going to wherever that AoE pack is and trying to place your bomb in the middle so that it hits all the targets. Or at least stays in your yardage there. But if you're in single target, you know exactly where it's going. You don't have to worry about spending half of your time applying different Nether Tempest dots. And I think that's a huge thing, is they want you focused more on your rotation, what's going on around you, as opposed to keeping 100 Nether Tempests rolling at all times. So I actually really like the change. I think the fact that it deals 100% of the primary damage will get nerfed. Either that will get... and the reason I say that is simply... Arcane has a lot of burst AoE already with Arcane Explosion, and Arcane Explosion is actually a pretty strong spell. So I think that having a group of enemies grouped up and being able to do pretty much 100% dot damage to all of those enemies within that range, plus doing Arcane Explosion damage, is going to get out of control. I really do. I don't foresee that, unless they completely buff everybody else's AoE out the ass. I just don't see that 100% number making it live. But again, I like the way that they're thinking. You know, that'll make Arcane Mages very good. Yeah. But what about Living Bomb?
Alright, so Living Bomb can now once again be applied to multiple targets and can be sprayed by Inferno Blast and has a normal 1.5 second cooldown. More of its damage has been moved away from the dot and sort of more into its explosion. So I guess more focused on AoE.
Yeah, and again, what I think I like about this is this gives us, as Fire Mages, something else to manage. Because right now, yes, you do still have to worry about the explosion, but because the explosion damage isn't extremely relevant as opposed to, you know, keeping other buffs up, which Pyromaniac has been removed if you look at the pruning. So that's really going to make, you know, our dot management for our one dot a little bit more important. We're going to want to make sure that that explosion goes off before we reapply our dot. So think of it kind of like a ticking time bomb, but currently anything after 3 seconds or below, then you refresh it. You don't want to refresh it before that, because then you don't get that explosion damage. So by emphasizing the explosion damage a little bit more, A, it helps a little bit with that splash AoE damage, and B, it gives us something to kind of micromanage, which I actually like.
Cool. So the big change, or most interesting change, I think, is the Frost Bomb.
Absolutely.
And it's been slightly redesigned. So now it has the 12-second, it lasts for 12 seconds, sorry. It has no cooldown. And it actually explodes every time the target is critically hit by the Mage's Ice Lance. The damage per explosion has been reduced to 75% to compensate. So tell me a little bit more about that.
You know, when I read through this again, it's reduced by 75%, not to 75%. So it's pretty much only doing 25% of the damage it was doing. Now, granted, it was doing a ton of damage in current live. The problem with that is like we were talking earlier, is that on AoE packs, what you're going to get is you're going to refresh that bomb when you have two of your Frostfire stacks, and what or not Frostfire stacks, I'm sorry, Ice Lance stacks, and what you're going to do is you're going to reapply a new dot, fire both of those off. If your pet has, this freeze up, you want to make sure it does, because then you can freeze it again, fire 2 more of those off, so you're pretty much getting 4 explosions, as well as the dot damage, as well as the Ice Lance damage. So honestly, I think in PvP, this will be insane, especially for Battlegrounds, because, and I hate to go into PvP, but right now, Frost is so powerful because of its burst, and I don't really know if this is going to help that a whole lot. I think this might make it worse. Just because that pet, if you have 2 people together and your pet can freeze, you get both of those fingers of Frost procs. Now in PvE, the pet freeze does not currently work on bosses, but it works on some ads. So unless they change it to where it doesn't work on any ads, then I could see it being in line. But again, we'll still have to wait and kind of see on this one, but it sounds very promising in ideology.
Okay, so this is a pretty interesting change that I think could be quite interesting. So you've got Arcane Blast, Fireball, and Frostbolt as a 75 talent now have a 25% chance to explode on impact, dealing an additional 50% damage to the target and all other enemies within 8 yards.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Pretty much they're adding this for every spec. All they're saying is your filler spell now has a chance to be more deadly. Because right now, the problem with all the specs is our filler spell is okay. Like, it doesn't do enough damage. The problem is they don't want to buff it, at least from what I've seen, is because, again, Arcane, you have those Arcane charges that stack. So what you don't want to do is buff that spell and then have people figure out a way to sit on stacks. And that's really what they're doing there. Fireball, again, the reason they're doing that is to try to encourage you to always be casting. And because you have that living bomb that you have to be watching too, this is, again, it's pretty much just a buff to filler spells to allow us to have a little bit more cleave damage. More than anything, because most mages right now, they don't have that all AoE. They just have that, you can spread it to 1 target or 2 targets. Now it's kind of got that multi-strike feel to it on pretty much every spell. So again, adding this with the new talent multi-strike, I think mages are going to really, really want that secondary stat, at least from what I've read so far.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. And so another level 75 talent it changes basically depending on your specialization. So if you're Arcane, it becomes Supernova, which causes a pulse of arcane energy around the target enemy or ally, dealing arcane damage to all enemies within 8 yards and knocking them up. If the primary target is an enemy, they take 100% increased damage. So this replaces Frost Nova, and it's on a 25-second cooldown instant cast. If you're fire, it becomes Blast Wave, which causes an explosion of fiery force around the target enemy or ally, dealing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards and dazing them, reducing their movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds. If the primary target is an enemy, they take 100% increased damage, again replacing Frost Nova on a 25-second cooldown. And then if you're Frost, it becomes Ice Nova, so it causes a whirl of icy wind around the target enemy or ally, dealing frost damage to all enemies within 8 yards and freezing them for 4 seconds. If the primary target is an enemy, they take 100% increased damage. Again, replacing Frost Nova, but it's on a 20-second cooldown.
Yeah, the thing that I want more information on this is how long do they take the increased damage. That is the big thing that they're not saying. Now, what they're really doing with the beginning parts of it, with the different affixes, pretty much, so knocking them off, reducing their movement speed, or freezing them, is right now hunters are one of the few classes that, and Death Knights can kind of help CC a group, or like take Garrosh Heroic for example. When you have the monk kiting all the ads in a big circle, having this as a backup would be extremely useful. Reducing their movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds would be monstrous. That's really, I think, what they're going for, is they're trying to give another class some kind of group CC utility, but it also is a talent that you want to take because it does 100% increased damage if you're doing, if you need like heavy AoE or whatever. So I'm curious to see how this works. Again, I think this is going to be obviously more for fights with a lot of ads, obviously. I think that's pretty safe to say. Again, I want to see how long they take that 100% increased damage. That will determine on whether or not it gets abused in single target or cleave situations. But again, if you look at Unstable Magic, you're doing all that extra damage. So I guess, honestly, if you have ads you need to CC in your raid group, you're taking the right level 75 talent. If you're not, you're pretty much taking the middle one. That's how I see it, at least so far. Again, I want to see more information, but that's what I read into that.
Sure. Okay, and so just moving down the talent tree, they talk a little bit about the level 90, saying that it's probably the most problematic talent row in the game, and I think we can both agree on that one.
Yeah.
So they made a few changes here. So Invocation, first off, has been removed completely. And they've actually made Mirror Image now being a level 90 talent instead. And to kind of buffer to make it worthy of the 90 talent, the Mirror Images now inherit 50% of the mage's spell power at the time of cast instead of the original 5%. So,
well, if we cover all three of them real quick.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other one they're putting in as well, instead of Evocation, is on a Rune of Power, no longer replaces Evocation, no longer increases mana regeneration, and now lasts for 3 minutes instead of 1 minute. And Incanter's Ward has been removed and is now Incanter's Flow. And Incanter's Flow, magical energy, flows through you, increasing all spell damage done by 5% per stack. While in combat, the magical energy builds up to 5 stacks over 5 seconds, and then diminishes down to 1 stack over 5 seconds. The cycle repeats every 10 seconds. So basically what this means is you now have no choice in level 90 talents. You are taking mirror images. In a nutshell. That's pretty much what it means. And the only reason I say that is because Rune of Power is clunky, okay? The reason that people do not like Rune of Power is because you have to fucking stand in it, and you have to cast it. The fact that it lasts 3 minutes makes it a little bit more bearable. Now it's kind of go where you need to go, set it and forget it. To some extent, the problem with it is it no longer increases mana regen. So it's like, okay, well, do I really want to deal with that lack of mobility when I could just have a cooldown that does 50% of my spell power damage, and I can just pop it whenever I want? It's 1 GCD, and I'm back to my rotation. I don't have to worry about where I stand. I don't have to worry about where I'm at. I don't have to worry about recasting anything. It's an instant GCD up, and you're popping a cooldown. On-demand burst, pretty much. So that I really like. Incanter's Flow is going to get reworked. There's no way that the spell is going live. It is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Yeah, it's a little weird, I think.
Think of it like the problem with the Fire Mage in general right now, and most classes, is it's kind of a gamble. Like, did you get all your procs? Did all of these things line up? Blah 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 blah. Well, now you're just adding another factor to that. Now you're adding, am I at 10 stacks on my way up? Am I at 10 stacks on my way down? You know, it's going to be one of those things where, like, okay, now I have to also take into account where I'm at in my stacks. And am I on my way up or am I on my way down? If I'm at 5 on my way down, but I've got my trinket procced, well, shit. Now I have to make a decision. If I'm on 5 and I'm on my way up and my trinket procced, well, now I'm ranking. And it's really going to be, like, that's a lot of damage per 5% per stack. That's a ton. To show the difference there. So I honestly think, yes, if you want to gamble and it pays off, sure, go for Incanter's Flow. The problem is, like I said, it's another micromanagement tool. So I honestly think most mages will be taking Mirror Image solely for the A, on-demand burst, depending on how powerful it is, obviously. And then B, it's a set it, forget it, it's one GCD, and you do not have to worry about it any longer, whereas the other two are more of micromanagement tools that you now have to deal with. So I'm curious to see kind of how this ends up playing out going forward. I'm not a huge fan of Rune of Power or Incanter's Ward with the changes made to Incanter's Flow. I honestly, at this point, am still taking Mirror Images because at least I know it's a DPS buff cooldown. Like, I know what it is. I don't have to worry about anything else. So I think that's honestly, again, I could be wrong, depending on how they buff it, how it works, how much damage it's doing. We'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't think it's going to last the way that it is.
The thing, I mean, I don't play Mage, but the thing I like about it most is, like, a lot of fights seem to have, you know, like maybe an ad that comes out that needs to be killed instantly, you know. This is Mirror Images, something you can save for that particular point and get that extra damage on that ad or something that needs to be killed quicker than normal. So I think that too gives it that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, think of fights like Darumu, where you're running around the whole time, like Rune of Power, like you're not gonna be using it. There's, you know what I mean? There's just no way. And in Incanter's Flow again, if all of you whereas you can drop Mirror Images anywhere you want and you get that immediate burst out of it. So we'll see how it plays out. Right now, that's where I'm going, but we'll see what the damage output actually is, how much fun it is to gamble. Again, I might like Incanter's Flow just because I like to say, you know what, if everything lines up and God comes, I'm going to do more damage than everybody on the planet combined. And so I don't know. I might play around with it a little bit. I doubt Rune of Power will make it into my rotation at all the way that it currently stands.
Sure. And then they made a few little changes here. Lastly,
pretty much all they're trying to do is make Frost more PvE friendly, which again, they do this every expansion. It never works because people go into PvP and abuse it. So again, if you guys want to read through that, go ahead. You know me and my disdain for Frost. It sounds like a lot of fun. Honestly, the way that they change things does sound a lot of fun. We'll see if the damage is efficient to deal with it. And then Arcane Blast, they buffed. Obviously, they made the cast time a little bit higher, but they also increased the damage to compensate, and they've also made the charges last longer so that you can kind of move around and do that a little bit. Again, Arcane being very, very movement-centric, we will see how this ends up playing out. I'm very curious to see what they end up doing with that. So, yeah, that's pretty much the mages. We got 100... What?
I think that's pretty much it for mages, yeah?
Yeah, the level 100 talents is the only other thing.
Oh, sure.
So we just got to scroll down to that. I'll get right into those. Pretty much you have a left and a middle and a right. And every class has this guide, so if you want to see what your level 100 talents are, go ahead. Your left is going to be Overpowered, Kindling, and Thermal Void. Pretty much what it means is you have certain spells that either buff the duration of your cooldown or reduce the cooldown of your cooldown. Is the easiest way to think of it. That's going to be your left-hand talent, and it's all based on your spec. So you do not have a choice. Like on your level 100 talents, if you're fire, you do not get the overpowered arcane version. You get the fire version, okay? For the middle one, Prismatic Crystal. Again, you guys can read through these with me, but again, I honestly think this might be disgusting. Doing 130% damage to everything within 8 yards while that crystal's down on a 1 minute cooldown. I think that has the ability to be amazing for AoE. Again, if we think about the Nether Tempest, we have that ticking on our crystal in the middle of all the ads, hitting everything for 130% damage plus arcane explosioning. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So that's a lot of damage. And then on the right side, obviously, your Arcane Orb, Meteor, or Comet Storm. Pretty much the same idea amongst all of them. Think of it... Oh, God, what's that spell? That hammer that the Paladins have where it kind of makes their way down and then explodes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think of it a lot like that. It pretty much just hits the ground, burns everything for an additional 8 seconds as well, and does a bunch of damage. Again, the damage has to be allocated, and that's what they haven't even put in yet because they have no idea how strong it's going to be. So, again, this is going to be really good for AoE. It's going to be very nice to be able to do it on demand every 45 seconds. I like the sounds of the right side, especially for fights with ads. I obviously for single target fights, kindling for fire. I mean, all those ones, the single target ones are on your left pretty much. Your middle one's going to be for those crazy, like, huge packs that might swarm out. And then your right one's going to be for, consistent ads, like, every minute or so. So think of, like, the right side being for, like, General Nazgrim, if you're doing, like, the Zerg strat where you suck everything in but the War Shaman. Meteor would be disgusting for that. Or Comet Storm or Arcane Orb. That would be where you would use that, definitely. Whereas something like the Prismatic Crystal, if you were on Garrosh ads, again, that might be where that comes into play. And then, obviously, single-target fights, such as Malkarok, you would definitely be using the left-hand side. And that's really, I mean, it pretty much, that's just the way that they're doing it is, okay, depending on the fight, you're not going to have much of a choice. It's going to be, okay, if I'm up for single-target a lot longer, Kindling's going to give me more of a benefit than, say, Meteor. And these are the things that you're going to have to balance. So we'll see what Blizzard ends up doing with those. But those are pretty much the Mage changes, guys, that we're going to cover. Again, if you want to see any of the pruning stuff, go ahead and scroll through this list. If you want to read any more into it, feel free. They did make a few other tiny little Mage changes, but again, mainly just pruning out spells. I have that up in the background right now, so if you guys want to pause the video and read through those without going to the patch notes, there you go. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and as always, we will see you in the next one.